From the PEP Radio Newsroom, this is the afternoon news for September 23rd, 2025, and these are the stories we are covering at this hour. I'm going to pause right here and simply say we have one big news story to cover today, and that's President Donald Trump's visit to the United Nations. All of the stories, all of the information we're sharing today is related to his address to the UN. President Trump criticized the UN during his address, saying that it is ignoring his peace-promoting efforts. Watched by the world, President Donald Trump returned to the United Nations on Tuesday to deliver a wide-ranging address on his second-term foreign policy achievements and lament the globalist institutions that have significantly decayed the world order, according to the White House. World leaders are listening closely to his remarks at the UN General Assembly as Trump has already moved quickly to diminish U.S. support for the world body in his 8 months in office. After his latest inauguration, he issued a first-day executive order withdrawing the U.S. from the World Health Organization. That was followed by his move to end U.S. participation in the UN Human Rights Council and ordering up a review of U.S. membership in hundreds of intergovernmental organizations aimed at determining whether they align with the priorities of his America First agenda. It's time to end the failed experiment of open borders, for example. You have to end it now. I can tell you I'm really good at this stuff. Your countries are going to hell, Trump proclaimed. It was a lot of bravado on the world stage at the United Nations General Assembly, even for a leader who built his career on political boasts. Trump has launched a crackdown along the U.S.-Mexico border and pushed hardline domestic immigration policies. Not to be outdone with foreign policy, Trump shares his thoughts on climate change. Trump urged European countries to abandon green energy initiatives, scoffing that, in decades past, some experts predicted that by the year 2000, climate change will cause a global catastrophe. He said scientists predicted some nations might be wiped off the map, but insisted that's not happening. Actually, climate change has indeed triggered rising sea levels and intensifying storms that have caused small nations to shrink. Such phenomenon has also cost enormous sums of money for disaster response, cleanup, and rebuilding in the United States and around the world. Nonetheless, Trump insisted it was the greatest con job ever perpetrated on the world, in my opinion. His words, not ours. He said all of these predictions were wrong and made by stupid people, adding, if you don't get away from this green scam, your country is going to fail. Regarding Venezuela and drug traffickers, Trump is unapologetic about authorizing the bombing of 2 boats U.S. officials said were carrying drugs, despite bipartisan criticism that the U.S. military actions violated the law. Let's put it this way. People don't like to take big loads of drugs in boats anymore, he said, promising more attacks if he deems it necessary. Please be warned that we will blow you out of existence, he said, after the 2 attacks the U.S. officials said killed 14 people. Many Democrats and some Republicans have questioned Trump's policy as a potential overreach of executive authority, in part because the military was used for law enforcement purposes, which raises the question, why the hell isn't Congress doing anything about it? Back to Trump. He has warned Europe immigration is destroying your heritage. Sounds remarkably like somebody from 1935 in Germany. Trump claimed immigration and policies confronting climate change, a double-tailed monster that's ruining Europe. His rhetoric was especially harsh on what he called the unmitigated immigration disaster. Here's what he said. If you don't stop people that you've never seen before, that you have nothing in common with, your country is going to fail. I wonder if indigenous Americans said the same thing when they saw the Mayflower. I'm the president of the United States, but I worry about Europe. I love Europe. I love the people of Europe. And I hate to see it being devastated by energy and immigration, that double-tailed monster that destroys everything in its wake. Then he directly addressed European leaders. You're doing it because you want to be nice. You want to be politically correct, and you're destroying your heritage. Then he went on to talk about his tariffs. The U.S. president says his administration is using import taxes as a defense mechanism, saying tariffs will ensure that other nations follow global rules on trade. Trump declared an emergency under a 1977 law to impose sweeping tariffs on most of the countries of the entire planet, including the Herman McDonald Islands, which, by the way, I hear they have stopped exporting fish to the United States. That's because the penguins can't find ships willing to dock at their ports. Anyway, his argument was that the import taxes were needed because of a persistent trade imbalance, even though the tariffs also applied to nations with which America has run a surplus. But the president also stressed in his speech that he wants the revenues generated by tariffs, even though a large portion of the cost is covered by American businesses and consumers who face higher prices. Way to go, Trump. Trump said inflation in the U.S. is low, even though several measures are running above the Federal Reserve's 2% target. The Consumer Price Index increased in August at 2.9% over the past year, up from 2.3% in April when Trump began imposing the broad tariffs. That's enough news for 1 hour. If you are watching our news videos on YouTube, please be sure to subscribe to our channel. Halloween music is coming on PEP Radio on October 1st. You can listen to that and all our programs on the Live 365 app, Roku, and Alexa. Up next, we have the Meadville area weather forecast here on PEP Radio. Be sure to tune in tonight between 9 and midnight when we have our news blast. That's all for now.